Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to part two of our continuous talks on the relevance of the message of Karbala in our modern times. Joining the conversation today, we have Brother Muhammad Hani, who has graciously accepted to continue this talk. And of course, I'm your host, King Abu. We want to start off the episode by sending our heartfelt congratulations to our beloved and blessed Prophet Muhammad, his family, and to the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon all of them. My dear friend, Muhammad Hani, Mabruk and Eid Mubarak to you as well.
Ayamakum, congratulations to all the brothers and sisters watching, and to you and y'all's families, inshallah.
Thank you. That's right. Congratulations to all of you as well, our dear viewers. So, before we go ahead and get started, Muhammad Hani, would you like to go ahead and make a short dua for us, for all the Muslims who are oppressed around the world?
Of course, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتظل بها النفاق وأهله وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة آمين يا رب العالمين.
Allahumma ameen. Ameen ya Rabb. So, Muhammad Hani, you know how we like to start off the show. I hope you brought your brains. I have a riddle for you. Before we get to the riddle, there was something I forgot last episode, and I want to make sure that I go ahead and take care of that before I forget again. And that is, I wanted to name some of the, not name, sorry. I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite thing about Imam al-Husayn? And I forgot to do that last episode, so I want to take the opportunity to ask you now. So what is your favorite thing about Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam?
Sabr, the sabr of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, as the hadith famously says, قد عجبك من صبرك ملائكة السماوات يا أبا عبد الله. The angels of the heavens were astonished at your patience.
Wow. I mean, if the angels are astonished, subhanAllah.
Perfect creatures of Allah are astonished at
Right.
your patience. That shows something about it.
Subhanallah, the level of patience Abu Abdullah displayed on that day, it's unfathomable, man. Subhanallah. So, before we get to the riddle, I'm gonna continue to name more personalities like we did last time from the event of Karbala, and I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind. Ready? Abu Fadl al-Abbas.
Loyalty,
Okay. How about Ali al-Akbar?
bravery,
And finally, Hur.
freedom.
Freedom, indeed. Okay, here comes the riddle now, okay? What is the chain that binds people together, but when broken, can lead to liberation?
Social justice,
Oh, you got the social part.
social revolution.
It's a
That
chain.
binds people together,
Uh-huh.
and when broken,
It can lead people to liberation.
so I got the social part right.
Mm-hmm.
Social justice. No, I said that. Sorry. You'll have to give me a hint.
Trying to figure out how to give you a hint without actually giving out with the answer.
I would appreciate that.
Right. What did they do to Imam al-Hussein?
They martyred him.
Besides the killing and all that stuff, that whole entire process, they did what to him? Like,
Subjugate.
okay, when you do something that you're not supposed to do to someone,
Punish.
yes, another word, when you do, if you don't do the right thing, you're doing something, the opposite of right, I guess.
Social injustice.
Now we're getting somewhere. Another word for injustice, I guess.
Social oppression.
Ahsan, there we go. I should have
Barakallah.
used Imam Mahdi as a
Yeah.
clue. Yes, social oppression, right? So, Muhammad Hani, last week we explored the relevance of Karbala in our modern times, right? Today, for this episode, inshallah, I would like for us to delve deeper into the concept of rising against oppression, right?
Yeah.
So, my question, I guess, is to start off this episode is how can the sacrifices made in Karbala guide us in our fight for justice and truth today? And how did that sacrifice shape the principles of justice and truth in Islamic literature or teachings?
If we see Abu Abdullah al Hussein as a historical personality, it won't have an effect. It sure wouldn't be as impactful as when you see Imam al Hussein as a doctrine. The mission of Abu Abdullah al Hussein was not just to shed some blood, as he mentions, لا أشرا ولا بطرا ولا مفسدا ولا ظلما. I'm not here for these things. I'm not here just because I want to be here. No, he wanted to establish a doctrine. And precisely as you mentioned, he changed the course of history. He changed what it means to be a freedom fighter, and he changed what it means to deny deny oppression. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein made a doctrine that every freedom fighter in the world can embody to succeed at what they're there for. And that is, he did that by redefining some terminologies. Firstly, what it means to be a freedom fighter, what it means to want freedom, what it means to be successful. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in his dua al-Arafah says a beautiful line. What has he found who has lost you, and what has he gained
Who has lost
who
it?
has found you? Yani, like,
Yeah.
what has he lost who has found you,
Right.
right? If we have a God-centric viewpoint when either we're in activism fighting against that oppression, you will understand with that God-centric point that no matter what they do to you, you will never fail. You will never be found in the pits of darkness. Why? Because you have God by your side. That's what he taught us. If you want Abu Abdullah al-Hussein to be an inspiration for a movement, he brought Allah into his movement and he was inspired to do something. Because Allah was there as his center, everything he did revolves around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Hussein was able to achieve what he wanted.
Ahsant.
And that was the freedom of people. And if that's the objective that we are trying to gain, social justice, then God is our metric. God is our ruler. And that's how he redefined things.
Ahsant.
That's how he became an inspiration for people. Because before him, the only people who would speak about this were the Aimma Ma'sumin. The only people who would... No one had the courage to stand up to Muawiyah and say, God is my number one priority. No one had the courage after Rasulullah's death to go, other than the Aimma Ma'sumin, other than Imam Ali and Imam Hassan.
Of course.
They didn't have any supporters.
Right.
4 people came to Imam Ali to support him. 4 people. Imam Hassan barely had anyone.
Yeah.
People would attack him. But what made Abu Abdullah so special was his companions. There was no companions like the companions of Al-Hussein. And those companions were able to redefine what it means to be with the truth. That no matter what, I'll give away my entire life, my entire savings, everything I have on this path, my life, if I was killed. And they brought me back 70 times, I would not change a single thing. I would sacrifice my life again and again.
Subhanallah.
So if we want Karbala to be an inspiration for a movement, it is by redefining what Allah means to us.
Ahsant.
That's what Al-Hussein did.
One of the things I actually take from Karbala is I look at Abi Abdullah alayhi salatu wasalam as literally the human manifestation of one of the ayahs of the Quran, right? Where Allah Azza wa Jal says, Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin, right? Everything is for Allah Azza wa Jal. And when you said God has got to be the metric, That I love that line, that God is the metric and the barometer by which you measure everything we do in life, and it becomes the guide, right? His words,
Yeah.
the Quran,
If
and Abu Abdullah
Ahsan.
leaves that.
If you want justice, what does Allah see as just?
Yeah.
If you want freedom, what does Allah see as freedom? Because at the end of the day, Allah is the ultimate truth. Allah is the
Ahsant.
absolute truth. You want to define truth, it's Allah. Anything I do in my life, I check it with Him. He's my barometer. It reminds me of another verse of the Quran. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي ابْتِغَاءَ نَفْسُهُ بِمَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. It's this ayah is specifically about Imam Ali alayhi salam. Those who give everything in their life
For the pleasure
for the
of
pleasure
Allah.
of Allah.
Ahsant. You know the apps that have they send you the ayah of the day kind of thing, you
Yeah.
know. The ayah of the day for today was actually that ayah.
Subhanallah, no
Yeah.
way.
Wallah. Says those who sell their souls for the pleasure of Allah, and I
Ya
was like,
Allah.
wow, maybe we should talk about this. Oh yeah, Kareem.
Beautiful,
Yes,
beautiful.
indeed. When we look at the leaders of today, right? One of the things my brother and I talk about a lot is the black community, right? And we look at people like Dr. King, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, and these guys, and those were their leaders, right? As black individuals, and who helped them to rise against oppression and systemic racism and whatnot, right? But today we see leaders are far and few in between, right? They aren't really good leaders. Whether they're Muslims or not,
Yeah.
there are certain characteristics that all leaders possess. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So when we look at the leaders and activists today, what can they learn specifically just from the leadership of Abu Abdullah and Imam Sajjad alayhi salam?
Again, God is the center point of your life. The reason why, and it's a beautiful point that you mentioned, we don't have leaders anymore. We don't have many leaders.
No.
Why? Because everyone is submitting themselves.
Subhanallah.
Everyone's a slave. Abu Abdullah taught us to free our souls. Like, you want leadership of a community, you want leadership in society, leaders and activists, brothers, sisters, you must free your souls. Because that's what Abu Abdullah al-Husayn taught us. At the end of the day, his number one greatest leadership quality was that for a second, not even for a blink of an eye, would he ever question the ultimate master's decision in his life.
Subhanallah.
And not for a blink of an eye did he ever consider anyone between him and God.
Allahu Akbar.
Never did he consider anyone to be that authority to command him what to do. He only submitted to God's authority
Subhanallah.
and whom Allah had sent for him. That quality makes a leader more than anything else. Because what is the goal of a leader? What is the goal of someone who's trying to lead society? He's supposed to take the first step. Abu
Ahsant.
Abdullah al-Husayn took that first step, right?
Ahsant.
No one can stop you. If you are loyal to the oppressors, no one can stop you from taking that first step. So Abu Abdullah al-Husayn made it clear. He made it like this. If you are with me, you are not with Yazid. If you are with me, you're not with Yazid. If you are not with me, you are with Yazid.
Ahsan.
Doesn't matter if you're just standing in the back not doing anything.
As a bystander.
As a bystander. No, you're not with me, you're with Yazid.
Allahu Akbar.
Mithli. Because what did he say? He didn't say someone like Yazid will never work with me. No, he said Mithli la yubayu mithla. Someone like me will never pay allegiance to someone.
You know, just real quick on that line,
Yeah.
when Abu Abdullah says someone like me, to me, what I'm hearing or what I understand is that he's not talking about Hussein, the human.
Yeah.
He's talking about what Hussein stands
concept.
for, the
Yeah.
concept, the philosophy, the ideology, right?
Leaders are principled.
Allahu Akbar,
Hussein
the
was
principles,
the greatest
ahsant.
principled person.
Yeah.
Because look, it doesn't matter where Hussein is. If Hussein's principles are there, it doesn't matter where I am. If my principles are with me, I am a leader in what I'm doing.
Ahsan.
Because nothing's holding me down. except what I truly believe in, and that is freedom.
Ahsant.
Freedom is not being able to do whatever I want. Freedom is that what you don't believe in, what is not the truth, does not hold you back. That is freedom. And what is the truth acts as a vessel for you to reach Allah.
Ahsant.
That is freedom. So, if there are leaders and activists in the community, we need to look at that paradigm that Husayn brought.
Ahsant. Now, when we looked at activists, my favorite group of activists are the youth, right? And I could have just kind of put in the youth to the last question I asked you about the leaders and activists, but I chose not to because I want to specifically focus on the youth. As you know, even the Quran gives a special attention to the youth, right? Excuse me, Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam is referred to as a fata, right? As a youth.
Yeah.
The Ashabul Kahf, the companions of the cave, also, if I remember correctly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they're also referred to as youth. So you can see Allah emphasizes on the youth because the youth are very vibrant, lively, and they're full of energy, and they're ready to cross boundaries and whatnot, and not easily be persuaded to blindly submit to anything, right? They don't want that. They're actually looking for the truth, right? So it's with the right leadership and under the right guidance. I guess my question is, how can the young people today connect with the legacy of Karbala in order to become agents of change themselves? Because as you see, even the Jews who are not Muslims, they themselves are standing up against the Zionists. And they're Jews themselves. So sometimes the truth is just clear, right? And people want to revolt against oppression and tyrannical satanic rulers, right? So, but sometimes they don't have that leadership, the right guidance. So given that they do have the right leadership and guidance, how can the youth today connect with the legacy of Abi Abdullah and become agents of change for our society?
I love how you mentioned guidance when it came to youth, because one thing is for sure is that the shabab, the youth today, what they need is a supporting leadership, a supporting guidance.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, where we messed up isn't having that support, isn't having that upliftment. Instead, our community leaders are focusing on getting stuff done their way. It's not their generation to mess around with, and I'll be frank with it. Right? Because we are living at a time where the enemies of Islam have done a direct and open and clear and brutal attack against our youth. Living in this time requires that level of support and community for these individuals who are the center target of the oppression of humanity. In fact, yesterday I was looking at a video of Ayatollah Taqi Mudarrisi, and he said something very interesting. He said one of the huquq, one of the right of a young person is that his parents get him married, so that on the day of judgment the parents will be questioned about this.
Don't get me started on that topic.
Oh yeah, it's a wajib min al. He said it's the greatest wajib on the parent to get the child married. I was listening to Ayatollah Khamenei the other day. He said it is important that our parents don't create those barriers for the youth to get married.
Allahu Akbar.
Unfortunately, we have dumbed down our youth based off of our standards, and we have made all these superficial things and put a religious coat to it, worn the religious clothing, and now saying this all from the minbar, right?
And then we wonder why our youth are deviating.
Oh yeah. Then we wonder why our youth are the most important part of our community.
100%.
We look at the Imam of our time and the narrations in in regard to the Imam of our time, the youth will be the ones running the show. Why are we so adamant in confining this generation that if the older generation just gave a little bit of support to them, they can do so much? And now we're getting to the part where Karbala plays a role in this. Because Karbala teaches us that the youth, they have what's within them to start a movement.
Yes.
Look, Habib bin Madahir, Zuhair bin Qayn, these elders were great. And they played a huge role in the battle.
Absolutely.
But if you look at Muharram and the stories that are recounted, we mentioned the story of Qasim ibn al-Hasan, Ali al-Akbar, and these stories brings tears and inspiration to us. Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, there's a reason why he didn't confine his son Ali al-Akbar. In fact, he sent his son first to the battlefield. Ali al-Akbar was the first of Banu Hashim to be killed. Why? Why was that? Because Abu Abdullah did not want to convert. He knows Ali al-Akbar. This is my amana from Allah. This youth is my amana from... That's why Ibrahim was ready to slaughter Ismail. That's why Ibrahim, without any questions asked, slaughter my son. Why? Because this is my amana from Allah. At the end of the day, on the day of judgment, I'll be in front of Allah and I'll respond on behalf of my son. Why didn't I let my son go ahead and do that? Karbala teaches us to value those youth. Ali al-Akbar asks his father the night before Ashura, "Oh father, are we not alasna bil haqq? Are we not with the truth?" Abu Abdullah says, "Qalu bala." He said, "Yes." Why? Why do you ask me?
Yeah.
Because if I am with the truth, it doesn't matter to me what they do to me. Qasim ibn al-Hasan asks on the night of Ashur, oh uncle, am I not with the martyrs? كيف رأى الموت? How do you see كيف ترى الموت? How do you see death? It is sweeter to me than honey.
You know, that question is more baffling to me than the answer, right? I mean, they're both equally dazzling.
Yeah, of course.
But sometimes I just wonder, what was the thought process of Abu Abdullah? Why did he even ask that question to begin with? It is as if he's teaching us something from the mouth of his nephew.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
He knows how his nephew sees death.
Right.
It's no secret that he sees death this way. But what is that message that we are getting? Is that selflessness, that fearlessness, that energy that exists within a young person. And Abu Abdullah al-Husayn used that on the plains of Karbala, and we're not expected to use it in our movements. Ajib.
Subhanallah. Thank you. I really we could talk about the youth forever, because it's one of my favorite groups of people to talk about, because having been a youth myself once upon a time, a long time ago.
You still are one.
Alhamdulillah, inshallah. But no, I see the problems they're going through, you know, whether it's relationship-wise, job-wise, just familial problems, all of these things. And it just feels like we kind of neglect them because they don't matter. They're young. They don't have an opinion. But yet at the same time, with all due respect to our brothers of Ahl Sunnah, we criticize them because when the Holy Prophet sent Osama to lead the army, at the latter part of his life, they're saying, how are we going to follow the leadership of an 18-year-old? No way, we can do that. No, he's younger.
Same reason why they rejected Imam Ali.
He's the youngest one. We're the veterans, the elders. But we're doing the same thing in our community to our youth.
Subhanallah, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn shows us why the opinion of youth mattered. 2 times on Ashura, we mentioned both the times, كيف ترى الموت? How do you see death? He makes sure that their opinion is heard. Similarly, he asked Ali al-Akbar, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah. So, when we think of Karbala, sometimes we think that, in some circles at least, there's this idea that it was a, political movement, and spirituality has nothing to do with it, you know? Especially today when we live in not just a Taghuti government, but a government that actually believes in separation of church and state. So clearly, when you look at things through that lens, it's easy to say, Well, Karbala was just a political movement. Hussein was just fighting, about who's going to be the leader and whatnot and all of these things. But on the flip side, we have one of our greatest leaders, our scholars, right? Sayyid Khomeini, who said that is religion anything but politics, right? So two conflicting ideologists, right? So my question, I guess, because when Sayyid Khomeini says is religion anything but politics, that really basically encompasses everything Islam is about, be it economically, socially, maritally, familial, everything, every aspect of life, Islam covers that, right? So my question, I guess, is what role does spirituality play in standing up against systemic injustices and oppressions in the world?
A lot of people have this viewpoint, whether consciously or subconsciously. Religion has no role to be played in my politics. Well, firstly, if it's a Muslim saying this, if it's a Shia saying this, be ashamed of your literature. Be ashamed of this Quran. Because at the end of the day, you have absolutely no proof for your claim. While on the other hand, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn clearly and without a shadow of a doubt opposes this viewpoint. In the testimony of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, his final will to Muhammad bin Hanafiya, his brother, he says, what? In خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي رسول الله. I want a reform in the nation of my grandfather. A political word. Reform in the nation of my grandfather. أريد أن أمر بالمعروف ونهي عن المنكر وسير بالسيرة جدي وأبي. I want to have أمر بالمعروف. I want to command the good and forbid the evil. Is this anything but religion? Is this anything but what the Quran had expected from you? Remember, the reason why Hussein was able to do anything was because he brought God into his political message.
I'm glad you said that, man.
Any reason, again, there is nothing that can stop him once God is in his message. So by all means, remove your religion and politics. But be prepared for both sides to fail.
Allahu Akbar.
Be prepared. By all means, go ahead. Separate the church and state. But be prepared for your church to fall in this world, for your state to fall in this world, and your church to be criticized in the hereafter. When Allah asks you, what does your iman mean when you were living in this society where politics were playing a major role affecting Muslims around you and non-Muslims alike, and these politics were the same thing that led you astray from your deen. Why? Because you didn't bring your deen to them. See, the issue we have in our communities is people just choose not to believe. But hear us out. You think that you can go through any of these tragedies, any of these political ventures without God? Well, say that Zainab seems to disagree with you. When she was asked, كيف رأيت صنع الله لأخيك? Allah was brought into the equation. ما رأيت إلا جميلة. I don't see anything but beauty.
So, if you think about that question, sorry, even the question that's being asked indicates that there is a spirituality in this quote unquote political movement, right? Because whoever's asking the question is bringing Allah into the equation in a political movement. Subhanallah.
The enemies of Islam knew this. Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad knew this. And so for some reason, some of our Shias are so simple-minded that they cannot put two and two together to understand this. There is nothing. What was Abu Abdullah al-Husayn? As the Quran says, أَئِمَّةٌ يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا. He was a spiritual guide. Imams are spiritual guides as verbatim in the Quran. But why, if this was not a part of our spirituality, why would he go out of his way to establish a political movement? Why would why would the Imam Ma'asumin go out of their way to sign a peace treaty with Muawiyah? Why? Why, if politics was outside of spirituality and their job was to be spiritual, why would they bring it together? if your argument or whoever is saying that politics and spirituality should be separated, if what they're saying is true, why would this be the case? Why would we have so many laws about Islamic governance? Why would we have laws about a justice system? What is jurisprudence? Yani law. It's like you think Islam is so imperfect that it has nothing to say in the political time. Islam has everything to say about everything. From the moment you enter into the bathroom and use the toilet, we have du'as for that. To the point where you're taking over the government, we have du'as for that. So if you want Islam to be separate, by all means, go ahead and see both your politics and religion fail.
أحسنت. جزاك الله خير. Now, even Abi Abdullah on the day of Ashura literally displays that spirituality is not separate from his movement, right?
Oh, yes.
Whether he's praying Dhuhr and Asr. In the
Subhanallah.
middle of the intense
South the
heat.
battlefield, let me praise
Exactly.
the Asr.
People, companions are lined up, taking the arrows for him to make sure his prayer is taken care of, whether it's Fajr time, whether he's telling his Zainab to take care of her hijab and everything, right? So, but my question then is, there's no doubt spirituality and political movement, it's linked together. There's no separation between them. But in today's world, in this modern world, let me take you as an example. You're like what, 17, 16?
17.
17, okay. So a young, youthful man like yourself, how do you stand up against oppression, following the legacy of Abi Abdullah in Karbala as your guide, and still on your daily basis, day-to-day activities, how do you stand up for the truth and justice and keep on with your spirituality practically? How does that look like for you?
This question has a fallacy in it. It assumes that... No, don't worry. Don't worry. It's not bad. It assumes that because you have to keep in check with your spirituality, or you keeping in check with your spirituality will make your politics difficult, or you being political will make your spirituality harmed.
So you don't think that's the
No,
case? Okay.
I don't think at all. I think, or what Islam rather says, is that you are keeping in check with both sides regardless. You keep in check with your political side, you become an activist, you start speaking out against oppression and injustice. The only thing that will happen is your morals will become stronger. The only thing that will happen is that you will become stronger as a person. What is spirituality? Spirituality is making yourself stronger as a person, stronger as a being, reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala quicker. If spirituality is complete and only obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that's what spirituality means, right? Obeying Allah completely. If I am obeying Allah, I'm a spiritual person. Well, Allah has told me to stand up against oppression. So that is automatically increasing my spirituality. These two shouldn't be put on a pedestal. As in, oh, I have to choose between either. No, it's not the case. Political activism is a spiritual deed. Spirituality means standing up against oppression. They go hand in hand, and as a young person living in today's society, we should understand this fact. If we understand this, then no one can stop us, because we are, subhanallah, we are told to choose between the two. We don't have to choose between the two. There's no choosing.
Gotcha. Now, now before I ask you this next question, I want to give you a premise, right? In the city that we live in, and I don't want to mention the name, I witnessed something that was very bizarre. Few years ago, they were doing the jalus, the walking of, Ashura Day, or for Ashura, in downtown of this particular city, and a lot of people came out, to participate in this congregation. And what I witnessed at that time is, because my perception of this event is a form of da'wah. And if you're going to make it da'wah, if you're going to do da'wah, preach the teachings of Islam to individuals, to a group of people who don't understand your language, it defeats the point, right? So it should be catered to a language that they understand. Whether they agree or disagree or they accept, that's a different case. But at least they understand the message. And what I witnessed in this particular gathering is the people that organized the event and everybody there They were doing the speeches, the recitations, everything in their own language. And I said, wait, am I missing something? How are the people here who are just out of curiosity coming to check out what's going on? Why all these people dressed in black coming here with flags and everywhere? What are they talking about? Oh, wait, I don't even understand what they're saying. It's a different language. Like, what is the point of that, right? So now comes the question. We live in a very complex world. People from different races, religions, ethnicity, culture, languages, what have you, right? And even again, I mentioned earlier, but I'm gonna reiterate it again because it's very astonishing. Even Jews are coming to the aid of Palestinians.
Yeah.
To the aid meaning like they're speaking up against systemic oppression, racism, and genocide, right? At the expense of them losing their scholarships, their education, their jobs, their whole future
Oh yeah.
in jeopardy, right? They still stand for the truth. So when we look at the message of Karbala and Abi Abdullah and what he has taught us, I guess my question is, how can we take interfaith and cross-cultural dialogues and not do what happened in this particular city, right? And incorporate a universal message of Karbala that promotes unity and justice amongst the people you live in within your society.
You know, to the viewers out there, as much as I love y'all for listening to this, if you cannot handle what I have to say, you might as well leave.
Okay.
Because
Disclaimer.
disclaimer out there, I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this. But I don't care because at the end of the day this needs to be said. We are living at a time where Abu Abdullah al-Husayn's for everyone.
Oh, yes.
And we have made him for ourselves.
Mm.
I was waiting for this question. I love this question. Because it really shows us the level of ungratefulness. Not only ungratefulness, the level of incompetency our communities possess.
Mm.
And I don't say this lightly. Yes, I appreciate the aza of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn,
100%.
whatever language it is in.
Yes.
I appreciate the fact that people go out of their way to do this for al-Husayn.
Yes, indeed.
But what is our goal?
Mm.
What do we want to achieve with aza al-Husayn? Is it just, and last time I said this in a speech, people got upset. Is it just a few tears?
Mm.
It is. Those tears, but what do they mean? Right? What is our goal with the movement of Husayn? What is our role in the movement of Husayn?
Mm.
Are we keeping this as an internal remembrance and reflection session? Because that's not the goal of Husayn. Yes, that's a part of it. That's an outcome of it. But the goal of Husayn was to bring Islah, was to bring reform, right? Was to establish good, was to establish and forbid evil. Now let me ask the same question from those people. Who is Imam Mahdi for? Ajalallahu ta'ala farajah. Who is he for? Is he just for the Shia community? No. What do we say will happen when he reappears? He will establish a global government. We want Imam al-Mahdi to establish a global government, but Hussein is ours? He's only ours? No. Why is it so important that we introduce Abu Abdullah al-Husayn to the entire world? We have narrations that talk about the reappearance of our current Imam, Ajalallahu ta'ala farajah sharif. And in those narrations, when the Imam reappears, it's the 10th of Muharram. I believe I mentioned this in the last podcast. The Imam puts his back to the Kaaba and says, "O mankind, my grandfather was killed thirsty. Hussein was killed thirsty. When you come to a gathering, let's say you're known more than me. I introduce myself by you. I say, I know you, and that characterizes me based off of you. Similarly, if I'm in a gathering, with all due respect, if I'm more known than you, then you would introduce yourself, but you know me. Oh, I know him, right? And that's how you get to know you. That's how other people get to know you. Similarly, the unknown Imam, the hidden Imam, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajah sharif. The first time he comes to this world, he introduces himself with Husayn. What does that say about Husayn? Husayn is a global figure. People know him. Everyone knows him. He is someone who is known in the communities. He's not someone who is hidden. We need to spread the message of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. Imagine, this message has caused such a great blessing. It's been such a great blessing for the Shias. Imagine what would happen if the world knew about him.
Allahu Akbar.
Imagine the people who are standing up for Gaza right now. They need direction.
Oh, yes.
They need direction. They need to know that the people there in Gaza, they're not alone. Because they have the spirit of Al-Hussein within them.
I love
When
it.
we saw this conflict start 2 years ago, we saw people getting inspired by the words of the Palestinian people. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel.
Yeah,
Why? Because of social media.
right.
Social media brought this in front of them. In front of the world. The world got to see this.
Yeah.
The world needs to see what happened to Hussein and see what serves as an inspiration for each and every one of these people to continue breathing one breath for every second of their life. All the resistance fighters out there that we owe our lives to, that we owe our souls to, all those who are defending the oppressed people for the past 2 years, where did they get their inspiration from? Where did they get their inspiration from? And let the world know it was our Hussein.
Exactly.
It was our Hussein and no one
Jazakallah
else.
khair. Ahsant. I mean, there was just real quickly, there was, I don't know if you've seen it, but there was this Christian or non-Muslim woman. She was talking about how a sister from Palestine, a lady from Palestine, because of her, she became Muslim. Subhanallah. And she explained, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean she guided you to Islam? She said, as a mother, I was watching a Palestinian mother holding her infant, and the infant was dead in her arms, and she was just saying, tears, obviously, she's a mom, and she was just saying, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, you know, thank Allah, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. She was translating this in English, right? And she said, wait a minute. In that moment, I'm carrying my infant baby dead because of this genocide. I don't think I have it in me to say shukran lillah. I don't think I can thank Allah Azza wa Jal enough, right? I don't have that iman, that strong faith in me. So she said, what is it about this woman that gives her this strong faith that she's thanking Almighty God after the death of her child? And then she was told, you know, these Muslims, they believe in the Quran, this, that, the next. So anyway, long story short, she did her own research and her own words. She started reading the Quran and she opened the page, and the first ayah that she read, she didn't reveal it. It was just a short anyway. I haven't gotten the chance to watch the whole video, but she said the first ayah she read, it was directly talking to her situation. Allah directly was talking to her. She said, Subhanallah. So now imagine something similar happened in Karbala.
Allahu Akbar.
Halil,
Much greater,
right?
Asghar.
Alil Asghar. So now imagine on a global scale, because Allah Azza wa Jal has given us all the tools we need to teach people about Karbala, and yet for some reason we keep Abi Abdullah and the rest of the Imam and Ahlul Bayt al-Ma'sumin to ourselves, right? It's unfortunate, but just if you can just picture that vision that
Ya Allah.
we teach on a global scale the message of Abi Abdullah
I
al-Hussein.
mean, if people
Allahu Akbar.
were able to do that over a mother carrying her daughter in her dead child in her hand, let's look at the image of Abu Abdullah on Yawm al-Ashur when he's carrying in Ali al-Asghar and says, oh Allah, what makes this easy upon me is that you are watching. And the way Zainab responded to the killing of her children, she goes into sajda and says Alhamdulillah. I mean, religion is, at the end of the day, you want to convert someone to Islam, bring them emotionally, connect them emotionally to Islam. The emotions play the greatest role in anything. You cannot logically convince, God knows, you can logically convince everyone you want, but not until they feel that heart-to-heart connection.
Exactly. Ahsant.
That's why people are ready to convert for marriage. Because once
Absolutely.
you fall in love
Exactly.
with something,
Yep.
there is no going back.
Ahsant. Jazakallah khair. Speaking about humanity, man, that felt like a short episode. We're already done.
Oh
That was
God,
literally my last question. But before we end, you know how it goes. Speaking of humanity, my last question for you, which is separate from the episode, obviously. You can look into the episode, totally up to you. But in about 30 seconds, What is your message to humanity?
My message to humanity today would be freedom. Allah has given us the opportunity to be free. Just like Abu Abdullah says on the day of Ashura, when he was in the position where his family was about to be killed, if you do not believe in God or the hereafter, at least be free in this world.
Subhanallah. Jazakallah khair. We'll leave it at that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Muhammad Hani, for yet another
Jazakallah
inspiring.
khaira.
Thank you for another inspiring and insightful episode as we continue to celebrate and sometimes commemorate the legacy of Abi Abdullah al Hussein. As long as we're able to do our part to reach anyone out there with the message of Imam al Hussein, which is really in essence the exact message of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So thank you for joining in one more time, inshallah. We hope that you will join us one last time next week for our third and final episode as we shift gear and focus on the transformative powers of the power of the du'as of Imam al-Sajjal. And if this episode and any other episodes of this podcast resonates with you, and if you have been impacted positively, we ask you kindly that you subscribe to our channel, share this message with everyone in your circle, spread the word, and follow us on our social media platforms, and share all of our content with your circle. And we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Until next time, I'm your host King Abu saying so long, and remember to treat each other with kindness. Assalamu alaikum.